Dark and Darker is an interesting game. That is the title of this video. Oh, well, I hope, because that's the title, that's the thumbnail I've made. It clearly says it. But yeah, I've been playing a lot of Dark and Darker recently. It's a new game on Steam. It came out on the 7th of June. It's made by Iron Mace. I've been playing it a ton. And I don't know. I was originally going to make a no commentary for it. And I do have the no commentary coming out. It's like the same as all my other videos, I make no commentary. And one of my friends turned around to me and said, would you not make a video similar to another video I actually have coming out soon, where I just talk about the game and explain why people should play it and how it works and so on and so on. And I said, fuck it, I might as well. I don't usually do these types of videos. This is not my, this is out of my comfort zone. Well, not really, but I've done these types of videos before. If you were been around to my channel before, I kind of removed them and then started this new kind of wave of no commentary, high quality gameplay. If you've been around before, then you will know I've made videos like this before, but this wasn't really the direction I wanted my channel to go. But I don't know, I'll give it a go, see how people like it. So yeah, back to the game. Dark and Darker, it only released there not long ago. It's an FPS dungeon PvP PvE adventure. So it's an extraction. It's a bit like it's an extraction game. It is. It's a bit like Ghost of Tabor, Tarkov. Can't really think of any others there so I've been playing recently. Just minus the guns, and it's just set in a medieval fantasy kind of themed era. Games like WoW, Diablo, Neverwinter, stuff like that. It's really set in them kind of time periods with them sort of weapons. So it's an extraction shooter. So you're put into caves, castles, mountains. They're the only maps that are currently in the game right now. And you scavenge for loot, kill other players, kill mobs, and extract. And if you don't extract, you lose everything. It's exactly the same premise as Ghost of Tabor, Tarkov, all the rest of them, just minus the M4 carbines and more crossbows. An amazing concept. I love the concept. Game's doing really well. It's currently sitting about 36,000 positive reviews on Steam right now, and it's only been out a month and a half. That's not bad for a free game. Now the game has some downsides, which I'll talk about, and the game has some upsides as well, which I'll talk about, and I'll talk about the gameplay, and I'll talk about the future for the game, as the devs have talked about, and the kind of the updates and how steady it is. And I'll show a bit of gameplay throughout the whole thing. There's probably gameplay on the screen right now if I've edited it the way I think I'll edit it. So yeah, I'll just talk about some stuff, iron out some stuff, and hopefully convince you to buy the game. This is not promotional. Iron Mace haven't paid me for this. I wish they would, hint hint, but you know, they haven't paid me for this, so this is just completely out of my heart that I actually like the game so much. So let's get into it. So, gameplay, the most important part of every game. I've already said it's an extraction game, with the core basis being you find loot and kill other players and then extract with it to keep your loot. Any loot that you extract with goes to your home base kind of situation, and you can use that loot to keep in a stash or to actually bring it into your next run so that you're better geared to face the monsters and the players. There's a risk over reward in this game, like with all extraction games, is that if you bring stuff in, you risk losing it and losing it all, but you also, by bringing in better stuff, you have a higher chance of not dying. Therefore, it's a 50-50, and in a lot of situations it balances itself out, which is what's great and addicting about extraction shooters. Yeah, in this game it's no different. Like I've already played it 4 or 5 hours. I've had my fair share of going in with loot and losing it all, and going in with loot and coming out with even better loot. That's the whole premise of the game. It's what makes it brilliant. I love extraction shooters, and it's what's going to appeal to most people when they see this game. On the surface, this game doesn't look like an extraction game, but it most definitely is. So moving on to how the actual game plays. So you'll start off when you create your character. You'll see me creating my character on my screen here. You just create your character. You can create your class. There's 9 classes in the game right now. To name a few: fighter, barbarian, cleric, wizard, warlock. There's a few other rogue. I know there's a few. I haven't tested them all. I've played fighter, warlock, and cleric. In a lot of these clips, you'll see my mate is playing as a cleric and I'm playing as a fighter. Fighter uses a shield and a sword, whereas a cleric will use a mace and a shield. The weapons are completely based on whatever class you're playing, although some classes can play other weapons, and there's a mix. So there's a great mix of what you can play. For example, when I'm playing fighter, I can play sword and shield, or I can go a heavy two-handed weapon like a spear, axe, or halberd, which changes up the gameplay dynamic because you can have 2 different builds. You can have build 1 and build 2. So if I'm going up against a tougher mob,
I might use a halberd, whereas if I'm going up against smaller mobs that hit faster, I might use a sword and shield to block. So you can definitely mix around playstyles for different situations, and you can bring lanterns, and you can bring all sorts of stuff. Any loot you find in game can be brought back. If you extract with it, obviously, it can be brought back and sold to traders for gold and other currencies. I think gold is the main currency right now. You can bring back materials such as ores, cobalt ore. You can bring back a lot of gold and stuff and sell it to the collector. They'll give you money. Then these merchants will sell you other gear, although the gear is usually lower tier than what you're probably going to find in dungeons. It is good gear in case you die and you need kind of gear to fall back on. You can use money to buy some more gear. In that sense, it's really, really good. The trader system, I would say, is spot on in this game. They've done a really good job with the traders. There's a good few other things. There's quests. Quests can be done for each individual. Each trader has different quests, different tiers, and you gain affinity with each trader. So each trader will gain you. It's kind of a reputation system from WoW, and same from Ghost of Tabor. When your reputation with traders, they will sell you better stuff, and they'll give you more quest items and stuff like that. They've done a really good job on the questing system here. I've seen it, I've played with it. They've done an amazing job. I'll give it to them on that one. As for the actual monsters in game, the monsters I'll show you on screen. I've only met a few of them. I've played a good bit, but I haven't played massively far into the game. There's goblins, there's mummies, there's mosquitoes, there's spiders. There's big enough spiders actually we can counter yet. We just seen from a distance and decided, fuck that, we're just going to leave that alone. There's lots of mobs, and the mobs get harder and harder as you go down different levels, and I'll get to the level system in a second. You also have another thing called the gear score. Your gear score is just based on the gear you're currently wearing and how good it is. I think it goes by the armor rating. Yeah, the armor rating's pretty serious. It's a big deal. The gear score is a big deal. Gear score, if you have a higher, each 25 gear score, you will go into a slightly harder tuned game. So the mobs will be harder. So that's one thing to keep into consideration if you're playing with a mate who's pretty high gear score. You're going to be in a harder dungeon with them. Another thing, as for extracting is another thing that I've talked about it way too many times now. There's different ways to extract. There's portals, which I'll show on screen. There is stairs and there's ladders. They seem to be the only ways we've found right now. They're all marked in blue on your map. There's two other stairs I've seen. There's a red rope, I think, and a red stairs. They bring you down to different levels. We haven't actually adventured into them levels yet, but from my understanding, from what people have said, they bring you down to tougher parts of the dungeon, often with bosses and stuff like that. Our gear is not that good enough yet to go down there yet, but that is my understanding of it. Other than that, that's pretty much it for the gameplay. The gameplay is quite repetitive, and a lot of people might not like it, but it is what I like, and it's spot on. The dungeons are set; they're not randomly generated, so you can easily learn off the dungeons quite easy. Although you will spawn in different sections of the dungeons. So oftentimes we would spawn in the lower goblin caves in the bottom corner, which I think as you go kind of out towards the edges, it gets worse, gets tougher, and the mobs get tougher. Another thing, players. Players are a big thing in this. The dungeons are completely open, so you will encounter players. It's not 100%. Me and my friends have went dungeons where we wouldn't encounter any players, and another time where we would encounter 2 or 3. We've encountered players that were far higher gear score than us, and they've completely killed us instantly. That's just the way it was, and they just came over to kill us. We've also found players that are the same level of us. I think there should be a video on screen where I found a ranger who just decided, fuck that, he'll leave us alone. Yeah, there's a lot of situations where you'll meet players. Most of all of my interactions with players have been hostile. No one seems to really care about being friendly in this. It just seems to be very much kill the other player and take their shit. Quite often what most extraction suitors are like, but that's what you gotta do. You gotta be the better geared. So yeah, there is a slight rage factor in the game where you could die quite easily to stupid reasons. As for mob spawning, the mob spawning has actually been fine. I haven't encountered too many unfair situations. I did encounter sometimes where we get a mob that was incredibly difficult to kill for our gear score, whether it was because of our gear score or lack of skill. Probably our lack of skill. Then again, you just kind of got to learn the game. It's a lot of trial and error and learning the maps, learning the mobs, learning their attack patterns. But once you kind of get over that hurdle and you're starting to get further and further and further into these dungeons, it is a lot of fun. It's probably some of the most fun I've had playing an extraction shooter in a while since Ghost of Tabor. And if close friends of mine will really know how much I love that game. So yeah, that's kind of it for gameplay. There isn't really too much. It's not extremely complicated. Obviously, a lot of the gear has different stats and all, which is
If you've played RPG games before, they're quite easy to get your head around, but I would recommend looking at some guides if you don't exactly know what some of the traits mean. This video would be far too long for me to go into the individual traits and what they all do. This is a rough video to give an idea of the game, and if you'd like to play it. If that's something people would like, a video going deeper into the game on how the gameplay core mechanics work and traits and systems and perks and skills, I can do that. But then again, you would probably there's a million guides already up online of people far more experienced than me going into deep kind of detail of all the items. So if you'd like to see that, I'm sure there's plenty of guides out there. Other than that, that's kind of it really for the gameplay. Moving on to the next one. Right, the cons. Every game has a con. I know it does. They all do. And this game's no different, unfortunately. So the main cons with this game that we discovered was, number one was the incredible skill gap. There's a really large skill gap in this game, and it's some majorly down to skill gap and another majorly down to gear. There are situations where we were encountering players that were incredibly high level. We're talking on level 20, they're 120. It feels that the game has a tiny bit, there doesn't seem to be any skill-based matchmaking. I think it's just very much, I've talked about the gear score, and meaning that you get put into different gear levels, but I mean, we're going up against people that had definitely a higher gear score than us. And I don't really know what that's about. I've tried to find it online and there's other people complaining about it. I don't really think it seems to be working very well. I think it's very much a system of, the game tries to put you with people with the same gear score, but if it can't find anyone, it'll just give you anyone. I know it's great for matchmaking and finding games, so the game is snappy and fast, but in a certain sense, when you're building up your gear and going through runs and you just come across someone that's the highest level possible and ruins all your progress, can be a serious con to the game. That is the only one con. If you're good enough and you can get your head around the skill real fast, I know it's avoidable, but it is definitely a big mood killer, and it has almost caused me to just completely exit the game at points. That's a con with pretty much most extraction games. There's not much you can do about it. I suppose that's what happens. The other con I could really seem to find was the lack of content. There is a bit of a lack of content. I know the game is in early access, it has just come out, you have to cut the devs some slack, but there is very few places to explore. There is only 3 places to explore really, and after a good few hours it can get incredibly boring. That is the only other con I could find for the game. The other con I just wanted to mention as well, I had actually left out, is there is a pay to win system in the game, and it's kind of a big thing that I forgot to mention, but there is a pretty serious pay to win system. You can currently pay for this thing called high roller dungeons. You need to upgrade your account to elite status to participate in these high roller dungeons to have higher gear at a higher difficulty. It is a pretty serious pay to win aspect that doesn't really suit the game, but it is Iron Mace's way of making money right now, as the game is completely free. So in a way, it's kind of necessary. There is also skins you can buy that give you slight buffs. I've noticed like there's certain skins that give you buffs. Yeah, that's not great either. You know, if people have ever seen my other videos, people really know I'm not a massive fan of pay to win. But in this situation, I think with such a good game needing funding, I think it is acceptable. It is one of the few situations where it maybe is just acceptable. But other than that, game's solid. In conclusion, the game's incredibly addicting. I'm absolutely addicted to it, I have to admit. The game's brilliant. I'd recommend anyone give it a try. Obviously, I've said this is not sponsored. I'm not getting paid for every single person that clicks my link, or if my video does well, this video could do impossibly shit and there's no effect. Like, this game is just, I only wanted to make this game because I love it so much. I only wanted to make this video about this game because I loved it so much, and there's really nothing else to it. I recommend you download the game. It's free on Steam. I think they're discussing possibly it coming to consoles, but the game's so far into so early in area access right now that a console port is just, it's definitely not in their immediate itinerary to do. But obviously it's always open for console players. But if you have a PC and you have the recommended specs, the specs are not incredibly high for this game. I was on a 1660 Ti and I was running max graphics, max FPS, 165. This game's not intensive. Anyone that has a PC can probably run it. I recommend downloading it and giving it a try. I truly do. The game is brilliant. I'm loving it. And you know what? It's free. You didn't invest anything in it. So I'm just going to say thank you all for watching. Obviously this was a very different video than I usually make. Anyone that made it to the end, please do like and sub. I don't usually ask for likes and subs, and I very rarely do. Most of my no commentary videos don't even have anything asking for it. Obviously a lot of video, I can't speak today. A lot of time went into this video, and editing and getting all the clips together. So I would appreciate, this is one of the videos where I would appreciate a like. It would really, really help. I'm trying to get this channel kind of started up to something bigger than it already is, and views have definitely steadily increased and likes have definitely steadily increased. So I do appreciate to everyone who is a regular follower or watcher of the channel. And anyone new, feel free to watch any of my other videos. They're a bit different than this, but you might like them. Again, if this video does well, I might do more in the future, but unless this video doesn't do well, I can't guarantee. This is kind of the decider video. I'm not really too sure. If this video does well, I will. If it doesn't, I don't know if I will do another one of these, but we'll see. I thank you everyone for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll talk to you in the next one.